100 billion that goes back to Africa every year will actually not close the funding gap, right? It's not going to solve the funding, the venture debt, because when people use that money, then their family is going to be hungry. There's about 30 to 40 billion sitting idle in the Diaspora's bank account. Not invested, just idle cash. That's the money that we should be going after. That money should not necessarily go towards risky endeavors, aka invest in startups. We need to figure out how to enable them to invest in risk-free government bonds, commercial papers, things that will guarantee the money back. And when they start getting the money back, nothing spreads quick as like testimonials. You can do all the education that you want, but if there's no proof that this thing works, we'll keep educating.
I'm excited to have you again speak to me. And I think this is the first episode since we transitioned from the pitch room Africa to the control room. Joe Kinvi, my man, how are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I didn't know I was the official or unofficial first guest. So it's
yes,
a pleasure. Yeah.
Yes, you are absolutely the first guest. The year have started 2026. How was 2025 like for you?
Tough. I don't think that many people are aware of how tough being a founder is, and nobody can actually describe it to you until you are in the arena, as they say. But it was also quite a fulfilling year because I think we figured out that what we were building is what people actually wanted. And we went from that building mode to selling mode, which is kind of like two different ways, because when you're building, you kind of know exactly what you're building. But when you're selling, you don't know what your customers are going to ask you next, right? So you're hoping that something that you've already built, but in a couple of cases, it's just stuff that we didn't even think about. And yeah, a lot of learnings. I discovered that I don't like certain things, including fundraising, which really sucks. I like selling, I like building, and I like dealing with people. But overall it was a good year. It was definitely better than 2024. And I'm hoping that 2026 tops 2025. I think that's all I can really hope for.
Does your experience being a founder and getting back into the ring last year gives you more sympathy or empathy for founders that you've worked with before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just being a founder gives you a different way to look at other founders. And one thing I say is when I go back to deploying capital, which I will, like there is going to be nothing that a founder is going to tell me that I have not gone through. For example, I've run out of money, like team members left, people say they were going to buy something and they didn't buy it, investors ghosting you. Like a lot of stuff that I heard from founders when I was deploying capital, they were sort of hypothetical. Not that I haven't seen them before, because for the past 10 years, I've only worked for startups or scale-ups. So I've seen different versions of it. But I think when you're in the founder seat, you're actually living the experience. And it's very humbling to kind of go through all the motions. But I believe that you're not going to get to the other side without going through it. And I really, really encourage more people who are thinking about becoming investors to actually start with either being a founder or joining a team, because it really helps you. I think that, I don't know how long I'll be building Borderless for, maybe 10, 15, 20 years. But on the other side, I also want to go back to like deploying capital at scale. And like I've done a small, like 25K, 50K here and there. But for the things I care about, which is, prosperity in Africa, like investment is a non-negotiable. And we need to be able to identify good entrepreneurs, back them and support them. And I can't really wait to go back to doing that. And it's good that we're all still young and most of us in our, late 20s, early 30s. What that means is we have at least another 50 years to go. So we have plenty of time to try a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what the next many, many years have in store for us.
One of the things that I've come to admire and appreciate about you is your deep love for Africa. So a lot of people that know you understand the story of how you came from Togo. But for those who haven't heard the story, what is that story?
Well, the story started in 2000. Actually started in 2004. In 2004, my mom was already living abroad, and she's been really trying to like get us to Ireland through initially illegal ways. And then I think she accepted that you have to just go the right way, and she went and applied for all the visas and stuff. So all these processes were done in 2004. What we heard back then was like it takes at least 12 months to hear back from the authorities, the Irish authorities. But we got very lucky. The luck we got very lucky because in 2005 February, the then Togolese president had just passed away. And there was a lot of international rumors that there could be a civil war, whatever, whatever. And I would like to believe that that's the reason why we got our visa so quickly. And I think it kind of like was sort of like miraculous because we got our visa. So I think she applied in November. She got it in February, which is like 4 months, like unheard of. And it was one day you're going to school, you come back home, and then the next day you're on a plane. Like it happened so fast. But then when I moved to Ireland, it was the first time I realized like a concept of race. And when I started telling people about Togo, it's like people don't know where Togo is. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I grew up there. Like Togo is all I knew. And then over time, you started learning. Like I didn't know any of this before. Like you only know what you know. I just started discovering that Africa is a poor place. And I'm just like, this is not my reality. Like my parents weren't rich or anything. I mean, I lower middle class lifestyle, like, your school fees are paid for, you get pocket money to go to school. But we didn't really do any like, we didn't go holidays or anything like that. So we lived at least to me, a very normal life. But then you start discovering that like, this place is poor. I'm like, no, that's not my reality. It's not that I'm not aware of poverty, but it just wasn't my reality. And over time, I'm like, no, that's not who we are. And I really, really try my best to paint Africa in a very bright light. And as I grew older, went to school, I also realized that, maybe some of the stuff is true. And when you compare Africa, to the remaining continents, we're lagging behind. Like, when you look at the data might be a little bit misleading because the way things like GDP per capita is calculated might not necessarily be the same way that it should be calculated for Africans in some instances. But yeah, like so throughout school, like when I went to school, myself and my sister were the only two Black people in the entire school. When I went to university, there was like, I think 3 Black people out of 60, 70. When I went to work, my first job, I was the only Black person hired out of 150 people. Not the only African, but the only Black person. There was another South African guy, white South African, but unless he spoke, you did not know he was African. He can blend in very nicely. So I've always kind of stood out. For me, I got here because I work hard, but oftentimes you're judged purely based on the color of your skin. I didn't get it. I became aware of it, but it didn't make sense to me because like I've always been the brightest in my class. Even when I moved to Ireland, I was like, yeah, I think I learned English in 6 months because Togo is a French speaking country. And I essentially came top of my school at the end of the, like after I came top of school. So I was always bright. And yeah, like I just thought that Africa is a great place. And as I started traveling the continent, like I think Ghana, of course, which is next door, Benin, I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about. But I think we have the opportunity to essentially change the story of the continent. And nobody's going to do it for us because the people that were telling our story, they were telling in a certain way that portrays the continent. And I really want to help tell the story of the continent differently. I think 3 years ago, I've essentially committed my career to that through investments. But I think we're going to need to tell our story in a different way. And like, I don't know if I answered the question, but I think Africa's story needs to be told by Africans. And we can't let the Western media tell our story because they tell the story that works for their narrative. So I think we have the duty to tell the story of Africa. And if the story doesn't exist, let's write it. And I think I'm writing my own version of it.
So from early days, one of the things that we got to learn as we research for this conversation is you, of course, taking multiple risks along the journey. And I wanted to learn from you. I mean, as a 15-year-old, you're running away from school, finding yourself in the library. How does all of those things, because as immigrant, when we come to the West for the first time, there's always like this shock that you have that have the ability to change your mental state. It's reframe how you think about life generally. I think you've touched on that. But how does those moments shape the person that you've become and the risk that you were willing to take in the career and the career journey that you've gone through in the last couple of years?
Um, Now that you say, I realize I've always been a risk taker from a very young age. So the real story about leaving school is the first school that I was put into. It had like in Ireland, you have like the kind of main curriculum and they have this vocational curriculum. And the vocational curriculum is essentially for people who want to go into apprenticeship. I mean, one might argue that it's also reserved for people who are not the brightest, right? I could be wrong saying this. So I was the first school because purely because English was my first language. Somehow I was automatically put into this vocational. And I'm like, no, that's not me. I am bright. Like I don't deserve to be here. So they wouldn't move me to kind of the normal curriculum. So I left the school and I went to look for another school. And when I went to that school, I told them that I want to do so in Ireland, when you're in the main curriculum, you have, I think back then at least, ordinary level and then higher level. I said I want to do everything high level. They're like, you're just learning the language. I'm like, no, like I have the knowledge. I just need to translate it into English. So they actually allowed me to do it and I was doing really well, but they gave me every subject, things like maths, I think geography, business, which I was really good at. I think there was one more. There was one more, everything but English, because they're like, well, English isn't your first language. I was still taking like extra English classes. So 2 years of, so that you do the living sort of A level. The first year I did everything but English higher level. And then the second year I went to my English teacher. I'm like, I need to sit this exam, English higher level. She was like, nobody has ever done that. I'm like, So I asked her, what does she want me to do for her to move me another level up? Mind you, what a lot of people do is they move down so that they can get good grades. But I'm just like, I can do this, So she gave me this poetry book. So the poetry books for ordinary level and high level are different. So she said that if you can actually go through all the poems, this was before the Easter break. And Easter is like, I don't know, 2 months before the exams. So she said that if I could at least master the poems in this book, she would move me like higher level. So I spent the entire Easter holidays studying poetry. Like, see, I wasn't leaving my room. Again, I was like 18, 19. I was like, I need to move up a level. On the day of the exam, they came to me with 2 papers. So the ordinary, the one that they thought I would ace, then the high level. Which one do you think I took?
The high, the high level.
I took higher level. I did higher level. I think I got like a C3, which was equivalent to like an A1 in ordinary. So like for me, it was a big win. However, this move that I made unknowingly got me a scholarship through our university. So there was this new scholarship that was launched that same year in 2008 called All Ireland Scholarship. And essentially it was looking at people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And like, first of all, the one of the criteria is you would have done everything high level and then you would have gotten enough points. So there was a point system. So like I came top in my school, my points were quite high. And I got this scholarship as a result. Didn't apply for it. So the risk was very well worth it.
Let me go back to that because I would like to understand what actually fueled that determination or that appetite for risk. Was it a function of how you were raised, the household that you came from? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, I've always just been ambitious. I want the best in everything. I've been a very ambitious child. I studied a lot. I think I was bright. And maybe I
Was
wasn't.
that was
I
that an
wasn't.
escape?
Huh?
Studying a lot, was that an escape? I
No,
want to understand like the function behind you wanting to be excellent, you wanting to study a lot. For sure, there must be something that triggers that.
I was just very curious. And like, peer pressure is not a thing that got to me. So like when everybody's doing things, I've always done my thing. This is not new. Like since I was 10, I've always done things I wanted to do. And like, if I'm going to stay up all night to study, I'm going to do it. Nobody's going to stop me. I wasn't stubborn, but I knew that I was a bright kid. And like, that was what was going for me. So I wasn't trying to be like anybody else. Yeah. Like I don't have a chip on my shoulder or anything. I was just very curious child. I'm still curious till this day. Oftentimes I always say to myself, I wish I was as curious as when I was like 18 or 19 or when I was in school. I was curious. I was very determined. And I wasn't like people look at me, they're like, when I tell people I play football, they're like, you don't have the body of a footballer. This is not new. Like I've always had not a footballer body. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't the guy who would win on the pitch. But I know that when we go to a classroom, I'll battle you like out. So that was what I was really good at. And I doubled down on it every chance I get. Um, no chip on my shoulder. My parents were not academic or anything. I was just super ambitious and very curious.
So not naturally, when we see kids, of course, people that grew up in a particular environment during a particular time that are as brilliant as you are, the path is not to go become a chartered accountant or doing an accounting and finance degree. It's going to become
Mm.
a doctor, a lawyer, something, hard. So why chartered accountants? Why accounting and finance? What sparked that interest?
Well, when I was picking my university courses, I had the option to do two things. It was either accounting and finance or computer science. The reason why I didn't do computer science was because I didn't do any engineering courses. But like I really have had love for computers since I was like very, very young. Even when I was in Togo, I used to like go to the cyber cafe. I was, again, I was that child who was super curious. I picked accounting and finance. So when I kind of dismissed computer science, it was either, and this was when computer science wasn't cool, right? It was either accounting and finance or economic and finance. And I did not take economics and finance because like I looked at economics as something that was very literature based. And I was very good at numbers. So accounting and finance was just a natural thing to do. I knew that like worst come to worst, I'll have a degree in accounting and finance because I'll ace it. It was very helpful that there was a lot of economics in my course. So like I did microeconomics, I did macroeconomics, did econometrics. And if I was to go back to study anything, like I probably do like a doctorate in economics because I really loved economics. And every now and again, I kind of like kick myself that I did not just go do the economics and finance. I'm still, as it turned out, I'm a very good accountant, but it was just a function of like, what's the path of least resistance. And I didn't want to just go to university and struggle. And also, like, I got grants in, again, like my parents in Ireland didn't have any money or anything like that. So I got grants. And if I fail a class, I'll have to pay. So when you get grants, you fail a class, they won't give you the grants for the year that you failed. And I was kind of like very scared that if I pick something and I fail, I cannot continue because I won't be able to pay for my school. So yeah, like there was a lot of these kind of smaller decisions. Every now and again, I wished I had a bit of guidance around me. I didn't have any guidance. It was just more like me making all these decisions as a, 17, 18-year old. And I wish I had a bit more guidance around me to be like, hey, Joe, like you should do this because of XYZ. But I think I turned out fine.
I mean, so if you were to go back now as a guided to that, young man making those decisions, what would be your advice? What type of guidance will you provide to that young man?
I'll probably do like computer science and economics. I think everybody should study economics because if you look at the majority of world leaders, many of them either have like Vladimir Putin has a PhD in economics, for example. If you understand economics, you really understand how the world works. And of course, like computer science is a no-brainer. Again, with the ascent of AI, it's changing very quickly. But anybody who has strong fundamentals in computer science they'll be super successful in the world that we live today. I don't know where it's going. I don't think computer science will go away. I still encourage people to at least understand the basics or the fundamentals. So I would have done like that mix of the two. Or if I was to pick one, it would probably be economics.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that because I did economics. I majored in economics. All of my degrees are in economics. So one of the things, there are so many things that I like about you, but I also enjoy the precision of like the thoughts and how things are structured around you. And I know part of that is because you have a consulting background. So tell us a little bit about EY or time at EY, and then what happened in 2016 when you decide to, abruptly quit a very stable job that any African that I know today will perhaps go for. I want to understand what really went into that decision making that you decided it's time to take this very long and we hope will be a fruitful startup journey.
So I joined EY in 2011, and I got this job right out of university, because again, all these companies were coming to the universities and they were hiring graduates. So I got the job before I finished, and that was such a relief to at least have a job lined up before finishing school. EY was, when I look back, it was probably very foundational. So I worked in audit standard, but auditing really helps you, like you're very organized as an auditor. You have to be. And I got the opportunity to work on so many projects. Like I think I was thinking the other day, like one time I was working in Google as an auditor on behalf of EY. And I think I gained like 2 or 3 kilo because the food was free. Yeah, like EY was good foundationally, but I think after a year or so, I knew that I didn't really enjoy auditing. Like, bear in mind that I didn't understand, have any idea of auditing. It was just what everybody else was doing, and it was the roles that are available. And I was very happy to have a job. So I took the job, and the thing that EY was amazing at is beyond the work itself, they also pay for exams to qualify. So that kept me there for slightly longer. So it was EY that I did all my exams. I didn't qualify there because as the professional risk taker that I am, I quit before the end of my contract. My contract is 3.5 years. I quit I think 2.9, just below 3 years, purely because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. It wasn't for me. I knew it wasn't for me. And I think any sane person who, you can't keep doing the same thing and you're not happy and you just keep doing it. But a lot of people stick to it because you have to finish your contract. But I was just like, I can't. So I think my contract was supposed to finish in, is it like May the following year. I quit in September. And everybody's like, why are you quitting? Nobody quits contract. I'm like, no, nobody. I'm not enjoying this. But then I think as soon as I quit, panic set in because I didn't have a backup plan. I quit this job cold turkey. No backup plan, no job lined up. And yeah, this September, I spent the entire September just looking for another job because somehow after working for 3 years, I had zero savings. I think I had 400 euro. So I had bills to pay, I had expenses, so I had to get another job. So I was interviewing and everybody, so I was applying for startup roles and people were like, you only have auditing experience. We can't hire you. And I met this lady, I think her name is Joanna, who said, oh, there's this bank that's looking for somebody to work in internal audit. So bear in mind, I was doing external audit. Internal audit, external audit are two separate things. And yeah, I interviewed, my life depended on it because I've already resigned 3 weeks in. I had 4 weeks notice. So I ended up getting the job at State Street. And State Street in internal audit, great role. This was kind of my first shot at an entrepreneurship. So my job alongside the director was to help set up the internal audit department. So it was the perfect job for me. And we did that for about a year. And then the second year we had to do audit. And I think I kind of got that reminder but you did not like audit. Why are you here? So yeah, I think just under 2 years at State Street in July 2016, I was like, no, I can't keep doing this. So that's when I quit cold turkey again with no job, no backup plan. But this time I was very determined to go into startups, very, very determined. So I started going to all the startup weekend, startup events, every startup event that was happening in Dublin, I was there. And I met this guy called. So that's what happened. I just knew that internal audit as a whole wasn't for me and corporate wasn't what I loved.
I don't want to stop you, but before you jump into what was it about startup? So I know you don't like auditing. I mean, whether it's internal or external, but what was it about the startup environment that was so enticing for you, given the trade-offs that you will be making in terms of, finance and packages and things like that? What was it that was so exciting?
I like to call myself a frontline guy. I'm not a back office guy. I want to be if it was back in the 1940s, I probably would have been in the army. I'm a frontline type of guy. Like I want to be I want to be the one creating the action, not the one reviewing the, annual reports a year after it's been done. So I knew like I'm a frontline guy, not a back office guy. Like everything I did up until 2016 was back office. And I'm just like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, and I complain. But I just wanted to be the front line. And I thought that, startups give you that opportunity to be in the front line. What I didn't know is startup doesn't pay. So there's like a trade-off there. No, I really, really care about being the front line. And I want to be like, when something works or doesn't work, I am happy to take the responsibility. So like in the audit, like you're not going to change results that happened last year. Like it's been done. Like you have no inputs like in the underlying data. So yeah.
So you jump into startup. In fact, I wanted to just talk about Touch Tech. So you join Touch Tech, and you realize that they won't be able to afford. I think this is a conversation you and I have had privately. They couldn't afford your pay, which makes sense. It's a startup, but then you negotiated, equity. What I want to understand is how were you able to negotiate the equity? Today, there are many people out there who still want to, work in a startup, but negotiating equity, especially with founders who are often very protective at that early stage, is quite a difficulty. How were you able to do it? Like, if you are 3 steps you could give in based purely on your experience, how would you be able to advise someone on the proper way of negotiating equity as an early employee, for example?
I think the first thing you need to do is you really need to understand where the company is at, really. And this will come through a series of conversation, not just one call. I spoke to the founders extensively just to really understand like where they are at. And at that time when we were speaking, I think it's September 2017, their summer, the entire board has just resigned. The CEO has resigned and they desperately needed somebody in that finance function. And like they had money, but again, like it's a couple of months runway. So there were plenty of stock going around, zero cash going around. Right. And after I spent a couple of maybe like 2 weeks with them, it became clear that they needed me as much as I needed them. So that was that clear synergy. And at this stage, like the CEO who resigned was also the CFO. So the finance function was just there. So that hole needed to be plugged ASAP. But as we're negotiating, like I knew, again, it wasn't my first startup. So I kind of had an idea of what my minimum requirement to live a decent life was. So whatever they were paying me was covering my bills. And what I would have saved was what they were paying me in equity. So it was kind of like a win-win for us. They got somebody who was qualified, has experience, startup experience, and corporate experience. I was able to, so when I joined, I also sat on the board as a secretary. What that meant was I think at one stage, not immediately, but at one stage, I kind of like sat between the founders and the board, and I acted like as a translator. When I look back, I was like, this was crazy times because like you had this board which was made up of mostly angel investors, and they're looking at like, you have to, where are the customers, who are you talking to? So there was this at one stage, a breakdown communication, and I became the translator, call it a professional translator. And also the board liked me as CFO, head of finance. So I was reporting to them, and I think I ended up building very good trusting relationship with them, and that improved like the board sessions. But yeah, I'm just looking back, it was actually such a I think everybody who wants to be a founder should kind of go through these, because it was very formative for me, very formative. And I have nothing but good memories of my time at TouchTech.
I mean, TouchTech was acquired by Stripe.
Yeah.
You must have, made millions from the acquisition from your stock.
Not me. Sure.
I mean, so that's why I asked a question about negotiating, right? You spend time with them, and you rebuild their financial structure. in a way that makes, you wouldn't want to give yourself credit, but I believe that the CFO plays a significant role in getting an acquisition to actually happen.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that like all the DD stuff I did, but
Mhm.
when you start getting into M&A, you essentially have you have negotiators. So you have like a buyer negotiator, you have a seller negotiator. And we actually hired somebody who was the seller's negotiator. But all the back office work I did. And yeah, it was a lot of work. I think we started DD in Jan 2019. And I think none of us slept till the deal closed in April. It was literally 7 days a week. Like, bro, there's no, like, it was 7 days, Monday to Sunday, because just because you're getting acquired doesn't mean that the company has to stop running, right? So because we're dealing with Stripe, which was in SF, you were essentially working till 4 or 5. And then you had to do DD work, like founders working on calls. I remember we got on this call like at 2 a.m. in the morning, but everybody had to be back at the desk at 9 a.m. So you can't just be like, oh, and because you're the CFO, you have to, keep the books. We had to go through an audit as part of this acquisition, an audit in the middle of the acquisition. And my auditing skills came in very handy.
Something you don't like, by the way.
Yeah. Not like, again, not liking doesn't mean I wasn't good at it. I
No,
did the
no,
audit.
of course, yeah.
Like we did the audit in 2 weeks, and it was, again, like I always describe my time at Touch Tech as probably one of the best. Like it was very formative because I did everything. Like I did everything, all the fights, all the laughs. I think I remember we went to Disneyland for our Christmas party. Like that was so fire. We had the best time, and I haven't seen a lot of the guys in a while, but all of them were all still friends. It was a very small team, like 8 people. So we were all still friends till this day. And yeah, like it was like I hope more people actually go through this M&A experience. And every founder who's gone through it will tell you that it's very nail biting because it's not done until it's done. Like till the last minute. It's not
You
done till
can
it's
break
done.
at any time.
Yeah, and like having like as the co-founder of Hulk, I've had to sign a lot of documents because a lot of our companies have been acquired. Like I've seen founders tell me, oh, we're getting acquired. And then you speak to them and they're like, oh no, it didn't happen. I've had founders who told me we're getting acquired by this company. And then I get documents. I'm like, this is not what you told me. So it's such unique experience that I think more people should go through. But there can't be M&A when people are not building.
Looking back at that moment, what do you think were the critical decisions that made Stripe wanted to acquire TouchTech? Like, what did you do? Because remember, when you joined the company, there was a bit of chaos. Board have resigned, CFO and founder is nowhere to be seen. You have a couple of, um, houses that will last you maybe 3, 4, 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you are now a couple of, several months down the line and you're doing this acquisition, going through this acquisition process with Stripe. Just reflecting what were like the signal for a company like Stripe to show interest in acquiring TouchTech in the first place.
3 things. You need to build a really good product. Our product, TouchTech, the product itself, was probably the best on the market. So good that Revolut that we all use today, called to say, hey, we saw this product on these banks. Can we buy it? Revolut called. I was in the office one day and I'm like, Revolut, I've never heard of this thing. And then we went to London and like we sold to Revolut. Your product was the best on the market. Second, you had to hire right. Niall, CTO, CEO, Niall Hogan is an excellent like recruiter. You have to hire the right people. And the third thing is you have to like traction. Again, when you have customers like Revolut, Wise, 26 using the product, of course, Stripe would want to buy it.
What was the product?
It's called ACS. So it's a 3D secure for issuers. So when you buy something and then you get a code or you do the face authentication, we built that. I don't know if Wise still use that product, but like that was the product that we sold. So the reason why a lot of banks buy ACS separately, because you have to go through like a lot of certification, which costs about $500,000. So we sold ACS as a service. So we built it, we managed it. And then we sold it to all the banks. They just pay us like a fixed fee. They don't have to do PCI. They don't have to maintain it. They don't have to do certification with MasterCard and Visa, it's a great product. I think like that product exists again today, which is a completely different story. Um, and many banks, financial services providers do not want to buy. They don't want to build it themselves. It's so two options. You either build or you buy, right? And many people just buy, and they were buying from.
So when Stripe acquire, TouchStep, they absorb. So it was some sort of like an acqui-hire situation. They absorb the team, and then you get to work at Stripe, and then they acquire Paystack, and then you move with Paystack. What was the difference in experience this time around? That you were, number one, you were a part of a company that was being acquired,
Mhm.
and then now you were in a company that was acquiring another company that you
Mhm.
were moving into to help scale their own product. What was that experience like? And what were like the critical trade-offs and moments you will always remember from those different experiences?
I think like just different priorities. And so when we got to Stripe, one of the first thing I did maybe in the first 6 months is all things integration. So non-technical integration, which I took care of, which was, like I knew the product, I knew everything else, so it was fine. And then I essentially helped manage that product internally. But now we have a ton of resources. Like we had all the resources, literally unlimited resources. So managing this product inside of Stripe was relatively easy. And then the reason why I moved over to Paystack was because we essentially like sunsetted TouchTech. So like TouchTech as a product was merged into the wider authentication team. What that meant was like, authentication is a very technical product. It just kind of features as part of Stripe. And it's not now a product by itself. What that meant was it didn't really need all the resources that we came with. And I had the option to either go within Stripe. So one of the things that Stripe does really well is like it gives you option. I don't know many people that work at Stripe that don't love what they do. And Stripe is that place that really allows you to work on the things that you care about. And if you work on the things you care about, you'll do your best work. I wasn't super excited about going into account management and all these like other things. But at this time, I think it was 2021, 2022, Africa, we've already been running Hook on the side for maybe like a year or two. And I became even more curious about how things work in Africa. So for me, naturally, like you want to go, if your company has an Africa arm, you want to go there. And Paystack just happened to be the Africa arm of Stripe, and spoke to a bunch of the people there, and they're like, yeah, we have this role and we did need somebody who can own this, call it like it's financial partnerships with a focus on expansion. And I'm like, I mean, while I have not done partnership as a role, I did all the components of partnership, like, contract negotiation, account management, sales, finance, because I was CFO. So like I had all the components of partnerships. I think Shola thought it would be a good role for me. And I was like, yeah, sure. It actually turned out to be a really good role for me because I was doing like many things that I've done um, in that role at Paystack. Again, for me, like working at Paystack it also ranks very high because beyond building a really good product, 95% of your staff, your teammates are Black people. They live across the continent. They're very smart. So like it was such uh it was such a reassuring like experience because like we're dope. We're really smart, and Paystack is the example.
Yeah.
And also Paystack had a very great culture, very similar to Stripe. So I wasn't like shifting cultures. Yeah, like working at Paystack was pretty dope. So yeah.
How do one succeed in roles that they've never fully functioned in? And because I'm thinking you were successful in that role while you have done a bit of, you know, partnership and relationship building with, Hulk, APNI. We'll talk about APNI shortly. But how do one succeed in new roles when they are transitioning? Like, what decision do you have to make coming into roles that you've never done before, experiences that you've never had before, market that you've never really operated before, for you to actually get the amount of success or the level of success you were able to achieve leading financial partnership with
Good question. The first step is you have to be very open minded, right? First thing first. The second step is you need to acknowledge that you don't know what you don't know. So the open mindedness actually helps you with that acknowledgement. And then when you're open minded, then you're open to learn. Like I have my skills, but I think maybe like for the first 4 weeks at Paystack, I didn't do any work. I essentially went around and talked to the entire organization. I talked to everybody because I really need to understand how Paystack works. Because when you think about financial partnerships, it's the very unsexy things that happen in the back that you don't see. And I needed to know what everybody was doing to make sure that Paystack runs smoothly. Like so that when you go into the checkout page, you can put in your details and click, and then it works. So I spent a lot of time speaking to people, just learning. I also spent a lot of time speaking to like our partners, and after doing that, I went back to my boss and I'm like, okay, what are we trying to achieve here? Like we had a ton of priorities. And what I did was I essentially looked at all the stuff that we needed to do. And I essentially tried to see like, okay, for every project, what sort of financial impact would that have at Paystack? Because in partnership, you either make money or you save money. Like those are the two things. Like you have to do one or the other. If you're doing both, you're doing amazing. So I essentially knew like, okay, these are the core metrics. Which one of these projects will give Paystack more bang for its buck? That's it. And we spent a lot of time discussing direct integration to like all the service providers. So the way partnership essentially works is, let me see if I can give you an example. So I worked in Ghana, and if you want to use Paystack, you can either pay with card or you can pay with Momo, right? Mobile money. When you pay with mobile money, you either connect it to the MNOs, I think Airtel, Vodacom, or MTN. You'd think that Paystack is directly connected to these three, but many companies, Paystack is now connected, but many companies are not. So they go through like third parties. And every third party you connect to, there is a fee attached to that. So my job was essentially like, how can we reduce our dependency on partners and also make Paystack more money? The reason why we wanted to reduce dependency on partners is because 9 out of 10 times when Paystack goes down, it's because of a partner. So like there was a win there. And also when we looked at the financial impact for Paystack, I think we were saving Paystack 50 bips. So that's like 50 cents on every transaction. It was a lot of money. So yeah.
Basically the dependency of partners is still very popular today
Yes.
in many fintech, right? So how do you, if you were to give like strategic, advice on, key steps on how to reduce that dependency with the notion that early stage founders don't really have the infrastructure or the depth that Paystack has. By the time you join Paystack, Stripe was already back in it. They have over $200 million as a war chest, right? So they can make those decisions. But for an early stage fintech founder right now, um, how do one really gain independence and not be overly dependent on partners who will cost their customers by their services going down, for instance?
Go get a license. That's it.
But licenses are expensive, no? They are expensive. They are complicated. In fact, in Nigeria alone, if you're launching a fintech in Nigeria, you're dealing with 3 different regulators. You're dealing with the central bank. And all of these people have like different things they are asking for. So, what is the trade-off? Like, what is the trade-off? Is not the best word, but what is the best approach to this for, say one of your portfolio companies?
Yeah, you just need to find like a partner, which Paystack was doing. But Paystack was big enough, and at this stage, Paystack already had a license. Having a
Yeah.
license is not like an automatic connection to the main provider, and that requires a lot of work. I don't think there is one way to answer your question. There's so many ways that people try, but like partnership is the easiest. But partnership means, while it means lower cost, it means dependency. So you're essentially juggling many things. Like what I was going to say is this like my portfolio company needs to scale very quickly. And also while they have a partner, they should also be doing the license application, which means that you need resources to do this. So there's no straight answer, but you just need to find people who are willing to bet on you, because if you're using a partner, they're still going to charge you, right? And in some cases, that makes your service expensive. It's either your service is more expensive or you're taking the hit. So like the beauty of partnership is there's no straight answer, because every partnership department is different. So you're essentially like taking each department as it is and figure out where they are and where they want to go to. So I think that's the trick. As a founder, you have different priorities at different times, whether it's runway, whether it's keeping your customers happy. And sometimes you have to, like, something has to give. Something has to give. And you should ask yourself, like, what am I willing to give up to be able to keep the company running?
I want to go to, a topic that I think you are very passionate about. Let's start off with the African Professional Network of Ireland. You set that up. It grew very quickly under you to 3,500 members plus. You left in 2019. What were like the key lessons learned from building, APNI, and that same lessons, how does that same lessons transition into how you were able to build Hawk? One was professional network, network of Africans in Ireland, not necessarily investment focused, but building each other up. And then the other is, okay, come together, let's pull our resource together, and then let's invest back home. Just drawing from those two experiences, what were like the key moments for you across the two, and how does building APNI influence how you approach building Hawk? And if you were building another APNI now, it's not 2016 anymore. So people are not really super excited about, joining, or a lot of people have joined a lot of, different associations. What would you do differently?
I actually wouldn't do anything differently because the two of them have turned out pretty good. And one thing I wanted to caveat is I wasn't the only founder, there were 8 of us. So like it actually takes a village. One of the tips that I give to people is don't try to do it alone because it's not gonna work. Like no man is an island. So I think the fact that we had 8 different co-founders really helped APNI. I was the founding president. I wasn't the only founder. I think one of the similarities is the ability to build trust. Like APNI was a very good trust building, or learning how to build trust, in the sense that when we launched the organization, everything that we said we were going to do, we've done. Right. So if you say we're going to do an event today, we do the event. We don't cancel. We don't change dates. That really builds confidence and it builds trust. The same thing applies to when we started Hulk. Like when we started Hulk, it was a huge information overload. Like we were very transparent with every single detail. Whether we think it's immaterial or not doesn't matter. Like we shared everything. And to this day, that still kind of, that information sharing is still there, except that with Hulk, we're much bigger. There's a lot of sensitive information. But if any Hulk member is watching this video and is looking for any information, they can reach out to us at any time and we'll give it to them. And I think just that openness really helps build trust. Like if we can't provide the information, we'll tell you why we can't provide it. Like we have some founders who send investor updates and they ask us specifically not to share it. So we sit in this very privileged position that we don't take it for granted. And we make sure that we serve our customers who are the investors first and foremost, and also the people that allows us to deploy this capital, which is the founders. But I think just being able to build trust can make such a big difference in everything that we do. And yeah, think trust. And so when I was leaving APN, it was actually very important for me to leave because I thought that it was the only way that the organization will stay around. And I really needed, I wanted us to build something that was bigger than us, right? And what that meant was how do you find the right people who will take it to the next level? And that means that you have to be humble enough to accept that there are people who are better than you. Surprisingly, the person who took over APNI after me was New BK, who ended up becoming the co-founder of Hulk. And I think our relationship actually started there because I was doing a lot of handover to him and we spent a lot of time together. and we knew each other before, but through Hulk, he was also working at Stripe. So like NewBK was much better than me at the stage that APNI was when he took it over.
Well,
So I think many people need to accept the things that they're not so good at. Like I'm a very emotional guy. If you fuck with me, I don't play. But people like New BK is more like he's more diplomatic. He'll calm things down. Like me, I want to like. So I think many people need to be aware of their strengths and weaknesses, and should have people who cover their weaknesses. And I think that's what makes New BK and I a very good like duo when it comes to Hulk, because we very much balance each other. Like he's super operational. I'm more like the vision guy. I come up with all the ideas, and Newbie just executes. He's a superstar executioner guy. So yeah, like just know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and have people who plug that hole.
how
I
much,
didn't
how much,
go on.
how much, much have you deployed today in Hawk across how many companies?
I think it's definitely more than 5 million companies. Probably like, if you count the fund, definitely over 120.
So here's another question. I've always wanted to ask you this question, by the way, both privately and I'm happy I'm asking this now. It's I apologize if it's going to catch you a little bit off guard. So what makes the best founders for you as as an investor, and what example can you actually give us in your portfolio of really strong founders, and how were you able to find them? But also what makes a founder that really just fly through, and then you still made the investment, but in retrospect, you regret making those decisions?
I think answering the first question is easier. When you're talking to so to be honest with you, the first 10 deals that we didn't know what we were doing. And for every angel investor that's going out there, the first 5 or 10, we probably have no idea. And many angels will be like, oh, just wait. Like angel investing is not something that you learn by doing. That's it. You have to do it, right? So we, like the first 10 deals, we really didn't know what we were doing, but we learned by doing. I'd say maybe like the following 50 deals, we were looking at founders who, when we get on a call, they teach us something. They have deep domain expertise and unique insights about the markets that they're serving. And one of the best examples is, I think it's like maybe 3 years ago when I met, was it 2 or 3 years ago? I met Redmond of Lemfi in Nairobi. At this stage, we've already invested. But I spent about an hour with Redmond, and that was probably one of the most insightful hours spent with any founder, in the sense that the stuff that Redmond was teaching me, in retrospect, I'm like, oh my God, I've never thought about it this way. Like he had this very unique insight about the remittance market that if we had that conversation 3 years prior when he was starting Lemfi, probably balling right now. I'd be balling, because like the way he thinks about building for the market that he's serving is so clear that more founders need to learn from him. The sad part is the Redmond is too busy to be giving masterclasses. Yeah, I think the best founders just know something that you don't know, that they know something that the entire world doesn't know, and they can execute flawlessly. I also think that the best founders are very focused. They're super laser focused. They wake up, eat, shit, sleep, that company. And I think for investors, unless you're a professional investor, you just want to get lucky to meet one of these founders. The sad part is a lot of angel investors are not. They're not fund investors where they can like invest at pre-seed, come back at seed, and like angel investors are probably doing one deal and then moving on to the next one, or they just don't have the depth of capital that are required to kind of like back a founder, the same founder 2 or 3 times, right? I think there's a lot of great founders in the ecosystem. It's just that many of us are struggling to, like, we feel like we won't get second chances. So we're really, really trying to win and that includes me. I'm using we intentionally. In the US, it's not the case. Like you can fail. If you're a second time founder, failed, or third time founder, the better, right? And I wish more African founders are allowed to fail graciously. Again, this thing can be taught, right? But yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did, but I feel as if you haven't mentioned on the, the week, the archetypes of a founder
Oh, I did.
turns out not to be great.
I did. Like the founder, like they had to be, they have to be able to teach you something you don't know. They have deep domain expertise, and in some cases, they don't know how.
So
For example, like
if you were, yeah,
read one
sorry, if you were,
engineer.
if you were looking, if you were
Right.
looking at a deal right now, it's a very tough market. And if you're looking at a deal right now and the founder is out there that is, fundraising and you have like different options, what would be like the top three things for you to be able to differentiate? Remember, you haven't spoken to the founder yet. You've just looked at the business. Perhaps you had only one meeting with them. What would be like the top three things you will look at to be able to differentiate which one you will put your money on?
I will spend more time understanding the founder and the background, like everything they've done up until this point. It will not be a 30 minutes meeting because it takes a long time to really get to know somebody. So that's the first thing. Like I will spend a lot of time getting to know the background of the founder. The second thing is I want to kind of connect that to what they're actually building the product. I probably want to try. The third one is like, is the market big enough? Right. There's a founder I'm currently looking at. I think we're bringing it to Hook soon. I can't think of his name, but the company's Paid, Payd, Kenyan guy. I like him purely because like whenever I go on social, he's there. He is everywhere. He's like, especially on LinkedIn, either himself or somebody's tagging him. And I like that because he's building a sort of like quasi B2C product. He's targeting freelancers, etc. And I like founders who are out there. Maybe that's because I'm out there. I like founders who are taking the marketing of the company in their hands, especially when you have limited resources. So that's something well, it's not the same for everybody. Sorry, my light's gone off. It's not like not everybody has to be like that, but like so like deep domain expertise and technical know-how. I want to be able to learn something. The product has to be good, even if it's like the MVP. It has to be a good MVP, right? And then like the market size just has to be big enough. And the founder, I really like founder-led marketing. I just think there's something very unique and authentic about it. And anybody who's doing it, like kudos to them. It's hard because you have so many other things to be doing. But if you find 30 minutes to write about your company, talk to your customers, or just put it out there, I think it really, really matters.
How do you balance it without not being distracted? Because I've seen
There's
other
no balance in this game. You're not balancing anything. There's no balance in this game. Sorry, you can't be a founder and talk about balance. If you're talking about balance, you're doing it wrong. Sorry. There's no balance.
Basically balancing being out there, the noise, and actually building the business. Because recently, in fact, I came across a post when someone is saying, building silence, and I have the same view as you do. I think the noise, the environment that we are is so self-absorbed. Nobody's going to look for you if you don't sell yourself. But then there has to be a strategy of balancing building the business and being out there, right? And how do you balance that?
You don't. I'm telling you. I'm serious. Like you can't balance it. Like the current version of Borderless didn't come out till July last year. I started talking about it like in November.
Yes.
So if people don't know, and then when it came out, then we pushed it more. But then what happens is when you're pushing this thing, you also have to take care of your customers, right? Because now you've acquired the customers. Like in the early days, there's no balance. I could be here right now. There could be a customer, like what, before I joined on this call, somebody sent a support ticket. They say, oh, the reference is too long. When I finish this thing, I need to go take care of it. I do support right now. And you don't know when the support tickets are going to come in, right? And what I try to do is as the support tickets come in, I try to see that how do we build processes around them so that the same ticket don't keep coming up. There is no balance. I'm sorry. You just have to, ultimately, you need to build it in to sell it. Maybe as you're building, you're pushing less. And then when you finish building, and also like, sorry, you're not finished building because you're always building features, you're making improvements. But like right now, we're not in heavy building mode. That's because now it's time to sell. But as you're selling, you have to do support. Like being a founder, it's like peeling. It's like the Chinese, those the Russian dolls. There's always something inside. There's always something new problem, right? And as a founder, you just need to figure out how to like best balance it. How do you quickly spot issues and how do you fix them? And just fix them once, but fix them once and for all. Because if you don't do that, the same issues will keep coming up and you'll just be busy all the time. Like I think over the Christmas period, I was just so busy because we had so many things going on. But at one stage I had to tell everybody like, I'm sorry, but like if I don't take a break, I'm going to come back here exhausted. But sorry, bro, there's no balance. Sorry.
What is Borderless and what is the thesis behind Borderless? I mean, I'm very particularly interested in this because we've talked through your entire journey and, working with startups, you being at the forehand, and then investing. And then for some reason in your head, a spark goes again and say, okay, now I want to build something. So what is Borderless? And more specifically, what is the thesis behind Borderless? Why are you doing this?
Borderless is my answer to enabling at least 1,000 Hulks out there. Let's run the numbers. Hulk has done 5 million, mostly into African startups. Add 3 zeros to that, that's 5 billion. I strongly believe that we need to have at least 1,000 of these collectives out there. And the only way we're going to do that is a platform that can support these. That platform is Borderless. So yeah, we built Hulk. It works, but not everybody wants to invest in line of Hulk's thesis, right? You have your own thesis. People have different theses, but like, what's the point of you having to do this whole process from scratch if you can just use a platform that allows you to launch your own version of Hulk with your own friends and not go through all the stress that we went through? Now you probably be like, hey, but isn't there AngelList or then all these platforms out there? Very few of these platforms cater to the African diaspora. And what I'm trying to say is there's so many things that we want to invest in. For example, remember that company that we saw in Sierra Leone cost the community?
Yes.
If you try to explain that to any platform in the West, they'll be like, huh? But you and I understand this company. Many people like you and I would put money into that company because it solves problems. It solves for people in Sierra Leone. And the diaspora just happens to have more money than people on the ground. And what that means is we need to build specific technology to address like this investment problem that we have. When you look at the data, I think this year or last year, there was like 3.1 billion that went into venture. But one stat that a lot of people probably missed, well, if you read the Archetype report, debt funding went up 40%. The reason being is like Africa is more debt friendly than venture. It's a no-brainer. The reason why debt is more friendly is because the risk-free rate across the continent is 15%. So you will make more money in debt than you'll make in venture. And venture is telling you 10 years. Debt, you can even make money every 3 months, right? So we're going to continue to see the rise of debt funding. And I actually think that the diaspora needs to be at this table because if I invest in a debt syndicate in Nigeria, that's paying me 25% a year. Even if that's in Naira, I don't know what would happen to the Naira we saw what happened 2 years ago. But like, even if the Naira fluctuates crazily 20%, you'll still end up with, I don't know, 20%, 5. So the loss will be 5%. Making 20% is definitely higher than anything you'd make in the West. So like, why are we not enabling the diaspora to make more money home? What people will tell you is, oh, it's risky, The same people who are telling you it's risky are the ones who are making bank in Africa and they're not saying anything about it. It's time for us to come together to really fund the continent because there are people that are making bank every year. Just go ask the IFC, go ask the World Bank. They're making money. Like, just go ask anybody who's selling any lending product on the continent. Like, lending and gambling are the number 2, like 1 and 2. I think gambling comes number 1. They're the biggest, like, it's, the MCC code, like merchant services. They're the biggest. So while all of us are sitting here comfortably in London, talking about Africa is risky. There is, I don't know, call him David Brown, who's making 20-30% of his money in Nigeria. I think we need to have at least 1,000 collective where everybody forms their own and we build the technology for it to deploy capital confidently onto the continent and get the money back. And the good news is, like, technology is evolving so fast. For example, like, I remember, I think it was, I went to meet you one evening. It was you or somebody else. I went out for dinner, and before I left, I told my engineer that we need to build this feature, right? He said, no problem. I documented, I sent it to him. When I came back that evening after dinner, it was built. AI, bro. Feature fully built. What that means is we have technology that can allow us to build faster, first of all. Second of all, we have much, much better payment rails. I think stablecoins were made for Africa. Like payment rails to deploy capital in, get money out. And essentially what you need to do is you need to connect all these pieces together to allow people to deploy capital. Because people are like, oh, what if my money gets stuck? The money won't get stuck. The rails exist. You'll be fine. And oftentimes I feel like people don't spend enough time to really, really understand how like systems work. For example, let's talk about real estate. So when we invested in the 2 properties in Kenya, we put this property on Airbnb. All our returns were in foreign currency. Make sure you pay your taxes in Kenya, but like your money's not getting stuck anywhere. Airbnb will pay you in the currency that you want. So there are so many things that people just don't want to learn, and we're so busy complaining and not taking any action. We are also thinking, we also want to keep using Western systems because we trust it, or at least they've conditioned us to trust it. Nobody's willing to build infrastructure. Everybody's trying to like find ways around AngelList and Sidecar and why. So yeah, I decided to build it. And I know for sure that everybody's going to run around and going to come to our product. People won't come use our product because it's built by, Africans. They'll come use our product because it's what's good for the problem that they're solving for. And this is my 3rd year building. We have a product out there. It's not the best, but it's getting there. And I think this year we're going to take it up a notch because like what we've managed to accomplish in the past 12 months, it's excellent. Like what we're going to do after, I'm super excited. And I think we need infrastructure that addresses our problems, not try to bend around existing infrastructure and always leave our money in the West. But that's a whole different conversation.
So there's something you mentioned as we wrap up that I have also been sitting with, which is the question of, I think about a year ago or even last year, the African diaspora sent close to $100 billion, if not $100 billion back home, purely for consumption. And if we are able to tap into just 1% of that, it covers our venture debts that you're talking about. But then on the other side, majority of the reason people are afraid to invest in the continent is 2 things that I've, come to understand now. Number one is you've talked about the infrastructure, the rails, and, kudos to people like you who are building that. But the second thing is they just don't know. They are hearing about startup, they're hearing about tech, they're seeing a lot of the conferences, but the truth is they don't know. I mean, they still believe in building the houses. They still believe in buying lands that are tangible. So how do we bridge that knowledge gap? How do players like yourself and players like me and others around build that knowledge gap that actually empower these people to be able to think about investing in some of the companies that, the Hawk, the African Business Angel Network or other institutions are investing in the continent?
I have so many things I want to say. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is the 100 billion that goes back to Africa every year will actually not close the funding gap, right? It's not going to solve the venture debt, because when people use that money, then their family is going to be hungry. That's not what we should be doing. The stat that maybe you might not be aware of is there's about 30 to 40 billion sitting idle in the diaspora's bank account. Not invested, just idle cash in the bank account that is unutilized. That's the money that we should be going after. So first thing. The second thing is that money should not necessarily go towards risky endeavors, aka investing in startups, because 9 out of 10 companies fail. We need to figure out how to enable them to invest in, call it risk-free investments. So your government bonds, your commercial papers, things that will guarantee the money back. And when they start getting the money back, then we need to encourage them to shout about it. Nothing spreads quick as like testimonials. You can do all the education that you want. You can educate the entire world. But if there's no proof that this thing works, we will keep educating. But if now the average Sierra Leonean can buy Sierra Leonean bonds and make 10, 15%, we encourage them to talk about it. Right? If the average Nigerian can buy Dangote commercial papers, we make sure they talk about it. Good news spreads like fire, and there's nothing more exciting than Africans making money in their own country. They will tell the whole world. We just need to make sure that by the time you start spreading the world to the 40 million plus diaspora, you need to really provide them with safe assets to invest in. But remember, safe assets to invest in Africa is paying 15%. So that's the thing. 15% versus whatever you're making here in the UK, which is 3 or 4. Now you're winning two ways. You're making more money, but the way this money is used is the money essentially is put into like roads or whatever the case is, which means that your country is actually better. We need to figure out how the average Joe can buy the country's government bonds. Right now, that doesn't exist. At least I haven't seen it. Because if it was there, I'd probably be buying it. That's where Borderless is going. So when you look at us as a triangle. So we're right now at the top of the pyramid, which is risky asset, a small group of people. And then we'll come down. Like one of the syndicates we're going to launch this year is a mobility collective where people can invest in like bikes and stuff. So it's kind of guaranteed, not as risky as investing in startups. And then we're going to come down again. When we come to the middle piece, more and more people are going to come here because they're like, okay, this startup thing, I don't get it. But at least I understand that, you give the bike to somebody, they pay you back monthly, and then blah, blah, blah. But then over time, we're going to come to the bottom of the pyramid, which is less risky asset class, a lot more people. So that's the way I'm looking at Borderless. It's going to take a while, but there has to be a very clear avenue for Africans to invest back home. And I think more and more government needs to, like a lot of governments are issuing like bonds and stuff, but they're issuing this on different exchanges that you and I don't have access to. For the continent to truly prosper, you need to get the entire diaspora fully involved. What that means is when you deploy that 40 billion and the 40 billion is making 15%, that's 6 extra billion a year. Now, that money is either going back. So now you have 40 billion at play on the continent, right? And you have the 6 billion that's going back to people who, wherever they are. Most people won't actually send that money back because they're already using the money for other things on the ground, right? Because they send money home anyway. So like, this is the work that we're doing. It's not just investing in startups. Like if you really want to enable the wider diaspora, 40 million people, you need to come down. And to come down, you need to have the right licenses across multiple regions, which is something that we're going to start working on this year, and provide risk-free instruments that folks can invest in, even if they're making 10%. 10% is much higher than what you would make in the UK right now. And it's safe. It's a no-brainer. But nobody's going to tell you that. Or, when I say it, they're like, oh, he wants to take our money. No, like we have to fund home and make money.
It's been a privilege to always speak to you. I've learned so much today in your, journey about how you build this resilience and how you're actually thinking about the continent. Just a final question, which is much more a utopian one. 10 years from now, with AI and the direction of geopolitics and borderless and the 20 to 40 billion that is seated in the African diaspora, where do you see Africa's competitive advantage sitting?
Do you want a short answer or a long answer?
I'll prefer both.
Okay, so the short answer is going to be a creative and cultural industries. The long answer is when you look at like America was built on lawyers, right? China was built on engineers. India was built on outsourcing. Africa is going to be built on artists. Just look at globally, we're the creator of culture. Anywhere you go, we're there, right? And I think that's Africa's secret weapon. Like when you watch iShow Speed's tour, I think it's finishing. It was something so beautiful to watch. And I can see this guy having such a good time. He's having so much fun. Yeah. And that's all culture, bro. Like we're so with culture, we got it. Creative, we got it. Anywhere you go, Afrobeat is playing. You can eat jollof on every corner. If you want, you can watch Nollywood. Our clothes is popping. The creative and cultural industry is going to be what manufacturing was to China. And that's the reason why everybody is going. Like you can't buy a place in Cape Town anymore. Packed out. Cape Town, it's packed out. The next thing is going to be Nairobi, which is also getting packed out. And then Accra and then Lagos. Everybody would want to spend time on this beautiful continent of ours, and I'll be proven right. But I'll hate to be proven right while I'm still living in the West. Like I am putting my money where my mouth is. And like I want to get to the stage where all my investments go to Africa. If the money is lost, people say I told you so. But I've lost money. I have no problem restarting from zero, but I'm very confident that we all care about this continent and we will do what it takes to make sure that it prospers. CCI is going to be huge. We've started it. I think it's Universal bought Don Jazzy's label, 200 million. We don't even talk about it. Are you taking the piss? 200 million to buy all our artists? It's actually not enough, but that's still a lot of money. Like there's so much happening on the continent from a cultural and creative perspective that it's going to be huge. I have a piece coming out. I wrote so many, like I've been writing it for a couple of months now on this particular space. And one thing that we're doing at Hoke is we're expanding our thesis into CCI. And as we're expanding the thesis, we've spoken to a Tunisian and Cameroonian guy who are making like premium body lotion. Spoke to this lady who's making a perfume. Or like I'm speaking to so many people, either in the diaspora or on the continent. They are building dope stuff. Like we're so talented and we're putting this talent out in the world, but we're not benefiting from it. You see, is it Kabi, the comedian guy, the Senegalese comedian?
Yes, 900 million exit.
Nobody's wondering who owns the other 50% because he only owns 50% of the company. But he's talking about this guy. But it's about how to invest in the next person. And like investment is the way. You can either tweet about Kabi or get paid from the next Kabi. Like
that's why I still need you to put together a deal for the guy you and I witnessed in Sierra Leone.
Bro, like the thing is that guy, super talented, except again, like you need to build that ecosystem. This last year when we were in Sierra Leone, you and I didn't even talk about CCI, but I've seen the talent. I've been to the bars and I've seen it. And I'm like, we need to, like, we already have this great asset, which is Hulk. Can we expand it a bit and cover CCI? Two things will do for us. It'll allow us to invest in these great businesses, but also more people will join the club who can become customers of these businesses. We have a lady who's making robots that makes wigs, super talented. The majority of her investors in Hoke are women because women wear wigs and a lot of them join the wait lists. And I can't wait to, one thing I'm going to build with Borderless is a marketplace. Any company that gets funded through Borderless will play part of that marketplace. Now we can use the Borderless audience to become customers of these companies that we're funding. Like bro, I don't have two heads, bro. Anyway.
No, it's been a privilege. Joe, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Like I said, it's always really super cool to, have a chat with you. We do hope sometime in the future you'll get to come back.
We should do one live. We should do one like.
Yes, we will. We're working on it. We're working on a few partnerships that will perhaps get us a live in-person studio. But it's been a remarkable opportunity. Hang out with us. Don't go. I know we're stopping the recording, but don't go. Just hang out with us. It will just be good to, pick your brain on one or two things offline. Until next time, I've been your host, ladies and gentlemen, Sidi Sako, and I've been joined by the amazing Joe Kinvi, co-founder of Borderless, co-founder of Hawk, and an amazing stand-up guy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.